Left my girlfriend after she decided to prank me. I've 22 meters been with Nicole 25F for a couple years now, and she's always liked survival stuff and weaponry and all that. I absolutely don't. Really bad experiences with knives when I was younger, and Nicole knows about them. We both love Halloween and usually throw a party and dress up and goof around, cook up pumpkin seeds and watch movies. Anyway, the point is Nicole loves doing tricks with her knives, like 5-finger filet, flicking it open and closed, twirling it and she'll do it when we're watching a show or movie together, forgetting that I've asked her please not to, or she'll buy a new one and show it off, asking if I wanted to give it first bite and pout when I say no. 2 days ago she was playing with it again, and I asked her why she keeps forgetting, and she said, wow, okay, don't insult my intelligence again, and then that it was just a knife and therefore not a big deal and therefore not that important to remember. After that she put away the knife and we continued to have an okay night, but I was on edge and jumpy whenever she touched me yesterday. She called me into the kitchen only she was playing 5-finger filet, and I startled her and she messed up badly. I lost my cool, screamed my head off, tried shouting what I knew about first aid at her while I raced to grab my phone. Complete panic, dialing 911 only for her start laughing and show me that it was a prank involving red food dye in a carrot. She had a nice laugh about how I would have known it was a joke if I wasn't so squeamish about knives. That it's proof I need to get more comfortable, that anyone with passing knowledge knows that it doesn't look like that when something like that happens. She kept explaining how she did it, how she practiced, how she could show me, but I didn't even answer her. It was like my head was underwater and my heart was beating out of my chest. Just moved on autopilot and grabbed my keys and drove a few blocks away before pulling over to breath. Nicole tried to call me, and the first thing I said was it wasn't funny at all, and she asked, are you crying? Then I hung up on her. She kept texting me saying she was sorry, that she didn't think I'd react so badly to a joke, that it was just meant to be good fun in the Halloween spirit. I ignored her, texted her after that I was home, but ignored everything else. This morning she sent the picture of the props to the group chat with a few of our mutual friends, and they chimed in saying it doesn't even look real. I've muted the chat since, and I'm wondering if I have a leg to stand on before I go back and apologize. Edit 10:15, 5:30 p.m. Further update here. It's overwhelming how much of a response this got, and I tried to read all of your comments. Some of them made me laugh, some warmed my heart, others had very hard truths that I still needed to hear. No matter how raw it left me, there are a lot of repeating questions and assumptions. First, we don't live together at this point. I don't think we ever will. Second, I stayed primarily because the good seemed to outweigh the bad. You remember the negatives more than the positives, so vastly I just had to remember her positive qualities instead of being swayed by my focus on the bad times. Plus, it was always almost perfect after we had a fight, and I just assumed the boom and bust cycle was normal. I didn't know Nicole liked knives at first. A mutual friend, Crystal, was in the group chat, and I met Crystal during a community college course, introduced us as I was new to the area, and at first Nicole and I hit it off as we had a lot of shared interests: music, art, outdoors activity, going antiquing, wine, food, and cooking, just a lot of things. We started dating and eventually went on a camping and hiking trip where she used a knife to split some kindling and she was pointing it toward herself. I remember telling her to watch out, and she had me to relax because she did it all the time. She asked me if I wanted to do it myself, and I admitted I didn't like knives. Later in the trip, we drank by the fire and talked, and that's when I told her about my trauma. She promised to protect me, and I remember that exactly because I had the mental image of her fending off a mugger, and I joked that she was my hero. My trauma has been brought up after that point, and neither of us were drunk at the time. My knife issues typically don't impact my daily life, except to make me more apt to be very slow in the kitchen when chopping things. It doesn't seem like abuse, especially when we're good. When it's bad, it's really rough. I don't have really any other baseline, as I was a late bloomer dating-wise. My dad always said that you should both give 110% in a relationship, but everyone argues. I thought working through the rough patches was normal. That's also why I was preparing to apologize, because it takes two in an argument, so I'm responsible as well and need to apologize for my part in this case, ruining the night with my reaction. I did go through therapy to help cope with the initial incident surrounding my aversion to knives. I was a lot worse when it happened, to the extent where I couldn't have anyone point the knife in the direction of another living being, or certain songs on the radio that were playing at the time, or certain smells. I've made progress, but clearly not enough to stay with her and deal with her fidgeting with the knives. I will admit to backsliding a bit in that I seem a lot more anxious when I stay the night and can't stay asleep or having more nightmares, which is why I believed her when she said I was overreacting. Also concerning the fidgeting, it's not a constant thing. Sometimes she'd go weeks without pulling the knife out. Sometimes she'd complain that I only focus on the fact she had used the knife versus how long she had abstained, which seems reasonable to point out. Update: a lot of the conversation is paraphrased with quotes that stuck in my mind. I also kept adding to this as things developed, and I'm running on zero sleep, so I'm sorry if it's not very clear. I did reach out to Nicole again yesterday to talk, and I went with the intention of standing my ground and explaining things so she could understand my side. She greeted me with "Thanks for gracing me with your presence," and asked if I was here to act my age and talk like an adult. She slammed the door behind me and pointed to the couch so we could discuss things. Nicole opened with my reaction was unreasonable and completely out of line. Considering the situation, I said that things need to change because the prank wasn't okay at all, and she knows I have issues with knife violence, and I asked what was funny about the prank. She interrupted and said that ultimatums aren't part of any relationship, so I said I don't think this is working out for us. I don't think we're happy together. Nicole froze at first, and I started to explain that the knife thing and our respective stances being so different is not fair to either of us. But she repeatedly asked, "So you're going to break up nearly 3 years just because of this?" I tried to tell her it was more than just this, it was everything else. It was that she keeps forgetting and triggering me that she loves playing with them, but it upsets me. But she started talking over me and yelling that apparently I think she's an idiot and that I'm the best actor in the world, because she never knew I felt so horrible, and that maybe I should call the cops on her for abuse. She grabbed her cell phone and offered it to me again and again, saying, "Go on, call." But when I said we just need to talk, she interrupted with, "No, you won't, because I know, we both know no cop is going to arrest me for a joke. Also, I'm not very tall, 5'9" in, and she's only 5'6" in, but she was standing right in front of me while I was seated, so I couldn't get up without moving her. After throwing her phone on the couch next to me, she stormed into the kitchen shouting that she should get rid of all her knives because I'm so terrified. She threw a few into the sink and then the whole block of knives into the trash, the whole time asking what about this one, too sharp, too scary. When I flinched at the noises, she said, "Oh, do you feel threatened? How do you think I feel when I have to defend myself against your feelings?" Nicole told me to quit crying, that I can't just use tears to manipulate her, and mocked me when I said please stop. She said she has to walk on eggshells because she has to deal with a boyfriend that can't handle a single joke without running off into the night. It's not hard to not overreact. Literally, just think before you go crazy. It's that simple, and that it's ridiculous that a grown man can't handle a knife or a gun, and I refuse to let go of my victimhood because anyone normal would have gotten over it by now. It's been nearly 9 years. She called me stubborn and childish for picking this hill to die on, that I'm not innocent. It's not fair that I'm allowed to ignore her for hours, but she can't have a little fun. And is my ego really that big? It's sickening that I don't trust her or think she's smart or skilled enough to handle a knife properly, and it's sexist, infantilizing, and insulting. At some point, I said I think I need to go home. And it was like a switch, and she said, "Please stop crying. I hate when you cry." I joked, I think, because she laughed. "I guess 𝐓𝐡𝐢 dates are off the table, huh? And I should probably take the knives out of the trash now, shouldn't I?" She apologized and said since it means so much to me, she'll put in more effort. She admitted that I'm such a sensitive guy that if she stopped doing everything that made me uncomfortable, she wouldn't be able to do anything. She pointed out that I cried watching my girl the other day as proof that I'm overly emotional, and it made sense that she thought I was just being my normal self, but she was sorry for not realizing sooner. It was really upsetting me. She promised she would do her best not to bring the knives out when I'm around. Nicole hugged me and told me to let go. "We can get through this. There's nothing we can't get over," and asked for a chance to start over, fresh start tomorrow. No more jokes. It's stupid, but I just said yes. I wanted to go home, get out of her house, and leave while she was still acting nice. And I didn't hold my ground. I feel like an idiot and a coward. I got home and puked and couldn't get to sleep again today. Nicole came and dropped off lunch and coffee for me, gave me a kiss, and said she loved me, and all the old ladies in the office were gushing about how cute we are together. I'm going to reach out to one of the guys I'm closer to and a friend who set us up to find out when Nicole got so into knives, because I remember about 7 to 8 months, and it was shortly after the camping trip, and it was Nicole's birthday that she asked for a specific knife as her present, so at least then, but I can't really remember there being anything major before then. I'm going to break up officially with her tomorrow with one of the guys if possible so I can get my stuff from her place. Final update: there's previous information in my profile concerning a post I made on AITA a few years ago. I came to Reddit about my girlfriend and her knife prank. It's been a long while since, and I was uncertain if I could update here or there or wherever. Roll this back over a decade ago for more background. When I was a preteen, we experienced a home invasion that resulted in my mother and dog dying and left me with a lifelong phobia of knives and anxiety surrounding blood and break-ins. Directly following the break-in, I was unable to handle a knife being pointed at another living creature. My brain caught onto stupid things and connected them to the events and made them into triggers: mom's perfume, the sound of glass shattering, or a door banging open. A song that was playing at the time. Even now I still hate the song, but at least it doesn't trigger a flashback anymore. Blood on beige carpet featured prominently in my nightmares. I worked extensively with a therapist to process what happened and what I'd seen. Recovery took years of therapy, weeks of inpatient care, medication to help with the nightmares, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. We sold the house as soon as we could. I moved out of state as soon as I could. I kept up with therapy and continued to take my medication. My aversion to knives became something minor and how it impacted my life. I was careful in the kitchen, and I certainly didn't search out knife throwing competitions, but it was under control in my normal daily life. It helped that everything seemed to be coming together. I made new friends. I was balancing work and school. I just met the girl who'd become my first long-term adult girlfriend. I know now it was just the honeymoon phase, but it felt like we were progressing well. Even once infatuation wore off, we stood together through highs and lows and the mediocre or middle ground where there's nothing exciting, just the mundane. I thought that was the marker of a steady relationship, to be able to stick together even after the excitement of a new relationship has faded. We went on a few trips together, driving across state lines to meet her family or flying back to see my dad. On one of our trips we went camping, and my fear of knives got brought up. That led to the break-in getting brought up. She seemed to care at the time, even promising to protect me if something ever happened and offering to help install a camera in my apartment after the camping trip. I don't know if it was always there, and I noticed it more after or what, but she started to be more obviously into knives, practicing tricks in front of me, showing videos to me, starting a collection. She even asked for a knife for her birthday that year, showing me exactly which one she wanted. Before she was into camping, into guns, which ironically I have zero issue with, and how to forage, make shelter, purify water, basic survival stuff, and artillery and tanks. She did multiple courses about military history in college and busted out the textbooks sometimes if she remembered something she thought I would find interesting, but suddenly it seemed like her focus was on carving and skinning animals on knife wounds and tricks and collecting and displaying knives. She started doing the tricks more often in front of me. Even when sitting next to me on the couch or at the dinner table, she would gesture with a knife without thinking and even pointed at me again. One of my major triggers being knives pointed at people or animals. She started sending me videos of news clips of other break-ins or news reports of robberies ending in murder, between a bunch of other funny videos or pictures. So checking Snapchat became a game of Russian roulette. If I didn't check the links sent through text, she'd keep sending them and ask what I thought. She'd forget she had the knife in hand when she came up to me, sometimes from behind. My nightmares came back. My anxiety got worse. No matter how often I reminded her to please stop playing with the knife in front of me, or at least not next to me, she would always forget after a little bit. Some part of me refuses to believe there's no way she risked bodily harm just to unnerve me. It came to a head when she pulled a prank where she pretended to cut off a finger. We had a huge fight, our biggest one yet. I wish I'd acted differently and hadn't stormed out, but I did. There's a lot about my time with Nicole I would do differently in hindsight. I was so sure I'd just break up with her for good. I don't know why I didn't stay broken up with her. When I did it first, I did it alone because my friend Jack rolled his eyes and called me a PC for wanting backup, so I did it in a coffee shop instead, hoping the public I could be my backup. Nicole stared at me with this affronted expression, and it was like I couldn't find the words anymore. Her eyes were huge and wide and hateful, like I've never seen anyone glare at me like that. She gripped onto the cup like she was going to throw it at me. I had it in my head to bolt the second she moved, because I could see it so clearly. But then she started crying loudly and kept asking why I would do this to her, and that she hoped I found happiness with someone better, since she clearly wasn't enough for me despite doing everything to be a good girlfriend, I felt like, and people were staring. So I wished her well and asked if she wanted me to call a friend, but she told me to leave her The alone so I did. I hate how I handled the breakup, but it felt in the moment like autopilot. In short order, I lost the support of our mutual friends, who had become my only friends during my relationship with Nicole, which I understand as they knew her for much longer. Jack actually confronted me and called me a piece of for embarrassing her like that in public, calling me trash for leaving her sobbing alone and not even offering her a ride home. He wouldn't listen to my explanations and said I could excuse myself, but everyone now knew what kind of guy I really am. People at work mentioned how sad it was that we broke up. I didn't feel like it was the place to explain my reasoning, and after the confrontation with Jack, I didn't feel like I had a right to. I felt like crap, like a person, and I felt numb. I tried to move on to find a new normal. After about a month of us being broken up, she called me and begged for me to come over to help her. She was scared she hurt herself. I went to her immediately. I held her all night, helped her wash her hair after days of not being able to bring herself to. She admitted she'd done a horrible thing and that she couldn't stand how she treated me, that she wished she could go back and change so we could still be together. Didn't know how to address that, so I just stayed with her the whole night, and the next day at work she came by to drop off a homemade lunch and to thank me for being there for her. I stupidly let myself get sucked back, and I get that it's my fault. Coffee in the morning became dinner, and drinks out became movie nights and going to shows and flea markets together because we still had similar interests. One time she even noticed a booth with knives and directed us away, and why, yes, it wasn't necessary as I could see a knife display and not be freaked out. It was a nice gesture because before she would have gone there and either bought one herself or asked me to buy it for her. One of multiple changes that made me think maybe she was truly making an effort, that at the least maybe we could be friends again. I started to get invited back into the group somewhat. 2 months later she kissed me. We were both drunk, and it didn't go any further. I didn't talk to her about it because I thought she didn't remember, but then she approached me to ask if there was any salvaging us, if she'd proven that she was different now and things would be better. I thought maybe I stayed because she really had been so sweet. It was like starting over, and we got back together. I was permitted back into the friend group in full, though Crystal had stopped talking to everyone and Jack still refused to talk to me. And while it was awkward at first, soon enough we were acting like we'd never stopped being friends for even a minute. It felt so good to go back to normal. It was like a weight off my chest and like I could breathe again. It was nice for a while. She was so careful about the knives thing, and it really did feel so normal and steady. Sure, we had small fights, but we always made up shortly after. And she'd be overwhelmingly loving after the fact. It felt like it was before, so it felt normal. I can't pinpoint when it started to creep back, but maybe when she started watching documentaries on her phone with the sound up high while sitting next to me, or when she'd poke or grab me while I was cutting up dinner, then laugh at my startled response, or she'd scoff if I teared up watching or reading something, then tell me later that it was out of fondness, not exasperation, and I really needed to stop reading so much into it, or she'd yell at me for forgetting something that she never even told me about. And then the next day, she'd get frustrated that I didn't insist properly, that she was mistaken, like it was all small things that on their own weren't even that big of a deal, and I didn't feel like I could just speak up about it, or else I was nitpicking her. In hindsight, I was making excuses and clinging to when she was nice to me, trying to do anything to make sure we just stayed happy and without bumps. Part of it was that I knew now that I'd be alone, that no one would understand why I'd throw away a good relationship, that being with her was the best thing that could ever happen to me. We moved in together 4 months after our getting back together. She was hinting